The coffee and cookie with Rabbi, and this is Torah Moments. And what I have right here in my little bag is the very last Jaylee cookie. However, I have been promised that after Passover, the cookie shall return. Oh, and along my great cookie, I have my sherry coffee, and I have my small Captain America cup. And so, today we're going to talk about the secrets of Passover. Most people don't know. So, coffee, cookie, immersing cookie, 3, 2, 1. I don't want to lose this one in my coffee. There's only one thing I would really like better than my Jaylee cookie. My sherry coffee. And that's obeying the Lord. So, as much as I will miss my cookie, I prefer to obey the scriptures and keep my Passover. And remember, as I talked about before, we just don't keep the feast itself. That's over in hours. No. First, we start with the preparation day. Make sure all the leaven's out of the house. Then Passover comes, which is the event that starts right before the sundown down. That means it can be over the hills, but still light outside. It starts then, and it ends with 3 stars in the sky. Passover is over, even though you're still doing it. It's kind of like the bridge between this day and that day. But when the 3 stars in the sky, all of a sudden, what do you have? You happen to have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so for those 7 days, we eat without yeast in our bread. By the way, it only applies to wheat, spelt, barley, oats, and spelt. Only those 5 grains. Eat your cornbread and enjoy it. Eat flatbread and enjoy it. Eat tortillas, but just make sure that there's no yeast in it. So anyway, but I don't want to talk so much about that today. I want to talk about the idea of keeping the whole thing. And the idea, bottom line, is that we're going to end on the day of Pentecost. It's a 50-day journey. But before we start that, let me tell you about the secrets of Passover. Yeah, there's some secrets there. You may not know. No one will actually keep the Passover. Yes, they'll sit down to the meal and they will go through the historical story and the telling of the Passover, which is what we should be doing. But because there's no temple, okay, we don't do the Passover. Let me really do it. So what are we doing? I mean, there's no temple. What the heck are you doing? What are you promoting? Rehearsal. Because someday, if the Lord is gracious, maybe our children or our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren will actually be able to keep the actual Passover, which must take place in the boundaries of the city of Jerusalem. Read your Torah if you think I'm wrong. But imagine for a moment, your great-grandchildren has learned from their parents, who learned from their parents, who learned from you. And when they go and they stand there in the presence of the Lord doing the Passover, they'll know what to do because you, the great-grandparent, you, the parent, okay, you are there to teach them how to do this. And that's why we rehearse Passover every year. Now, there are other secrets about the Passover. Like, did you know there's a second Passover that's done every year? Yes, there's 2 Passovers every year. Whoa, coffee time. The second Passover takes place 28 days after the first one. And actually, it will be on the 4th, 5th of May this year. It's 28 days after. We live in the diaspora, so we got 2 days there. So what's it for? The Passover, the second one, is intentionally because you missed the first one for legitimate reasons. Here's what it says. I'm going to read to you out of the book of Numbers, chapter 9, starting in verse 8. Chapter 9, verse 8. Moses answered them, "Wait until I find out what the Lord commandments concerning you." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, when any of you or your descendants are unclean because of a dead body or away on a journey, they may celebrate the Lord's Passover. They are to celebrate it on the 14th day of the second month at twilight. They are to eat the lamb together with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They must not leave any of it till morning or break any of its bones. When they celebrate the Passover, they must follow all the regulations. But if a man who is ceremonially clean and not on a journey fails to celebrate the Passover, that person must be cut off from his people because he did not present the Lord's offering at the appointed time. That man will bear the consequence of his own sin." In other words, if you could have kept the first Passover and didn't, then you don't have an option at the second Passover. The second Passover is for those who really couldn't, those who were away on a journey, or those who were forced to work in a legitimate job, like being a police officer in the military or something that preserves life, or those who by chance who were ill. There's the second Passover, which they can keep, which is appointed by the Lord. And I believe the reason for this is because God is gracious and he's good. And whosoever will, let them come. But they must come at the right time. You know, it kind of makes it funny when you think of people saying, "Well, I can't go to church on Sunday, so I do my church on Tuesday." Or, my Sabbath is on Monday when I have a day. No, you don't change times. The Bible is very specific. Okay? 6 days he labored, on the seventh day he rested. That became the Shabbat. And in the context of the church, so I think I'll be on the Sabbath, the context of the church says constantly on the first day of the week, not the seventh, but the first day of the week. Well, you know what? Those are your appointed times. You should be at your appointed. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you point blank, if you, by any chance, have something else to do, you really shouldn't do it. Yes, there are times we can go on vacation. And yes, there are times when maybe we are forced, and that's the word, to not attend church or not to attend synagogue. But it's my responsibility as a Jew and as a believer in Yeshua, and as the rabbi, my place is to be in the synagogue every Shabbat, if I can. And if you're a Christian, your place is to be in your church every Sunday. Don't be messing with the time. Don't be blowing it off. I don't care about football games. I'll just be honest with you. You need to be at your place of worship. And just the same truth is there when you think about the Passover. If you really can't make the Passover, you're on a journey, you're ill, whatever it is, then there's Passover Shmini, which happens to be the second one. This Passover is so you're not out in the cold, so you can fulfill the commandments of God. So you can do that which God desires you to do and your heart desires for you to do. And we will be doing that this year for those who let me know that they couldn't make legitimately. Now, if you were just busy, and you were, let's say, watching a football game, baseball game, decided not to go to synagogue for Passover or whatever it was, okay, sorry, you don't qualify. You see, a commandment is a commandment. It's not optional. There's something unique about the word forever that we need to remember. So, there are other little secrets about the Passover you may not understand. If you are the firstborn son and the first issue of the womb, in other words, you're the first child your mom had, and you're the first son, okay, you can't have a sister in front of you, okay, you actually have an obligation to fast, what's called the fast of the firstborn, as remembrance of what God did in Egypt, okay, with the plague of the firstborn. But there are other little tidbits that you may not know about Passover. Passover is an event that God has given to us as a permanent reminder. And people say, oh, I don't need to do that stuff anymore. I got some news for you. As I keep studying God's calendar, his appointed times. Did you know when he put the sun, moon, the stars in the sky, it says it was created for seasons and festivals, which means on rotation, seasons and festivals. See, are you following me? That means God had preordained certain blessings at certain times of the year for certain acts of obedience. And so when we are obedient to the Passover, we're looking at opportunities for deliverance from attitudes, sin, issues, whatever it is. We look for God to liberate us on some scale somewhere in our life. And sometimes that's literally being delivered. So when we think about the Passover, don't think of it just as a holiday. It's an appointed time on the calendar, according to the seasons, every year for a function and a purpose. That's right. Are you still following me? When we do Passover, we do obedience to the Lord. And we do it with joy. Because every year I get to celebrate being free in the Messiah. Free. The Lord's Supper, communion, Eucharist, whatever you call it, okay, in your world. It is the promise of the freedom. As Moses took our people out of the bondage, worldly, Yeshua took us out of the bondage of self and sin, and promised he'd come again and deliver us from this place, this world. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and bring my program to its conclusion. And if you would, hit the like button, share button, the follow, subscribe button, heck, even hit that donate button, okay? And let us celebrate the Lord together. Now, that was my last cookie until after the Passover, okay? I'm not going to substitute it with something else just because it's something, no. Faithful to the cookie, but faithful even more to the Lord. I'm cracking myself up. So anyway, may God bless you, keep you, and by his good grace, we will see you tomorrow right here.